Hello and welcome to Lockoffs with me, John O'Hersey. Now, before we get started talking about the wine and the cheese, we're just going to do a bit of housekeeping. So, Lockoffs is the idea of having a knockoff in lockdown. Now, for 13 million of us Australians, we are in a fairly strict lockdown at the moment. At the moment, we are sitting in Kaipo in the Adelaide Hills in South Australia, which has only just recently gone into lockdown, and that is what's prompted me to put together this mixed six-pack available at the French Wine Centre. Now, it's last minute, so I dare say anyone tuning in tonight and having a glass of Domaine Robert-Denogent will not be able to organise this. However, Valerie Henbest at the Smelly Cheese Shop got in touch this afternoon and paired 6 beautiful cheeses with all 6 of the wines. Now, if you're in South Australia, you will be able to go into the Adelaide markets and collect these. Now, I'll put these up in the comments. But tonight, let's get to the main event. 2017 Domaine Robert-Denogent, Pouilly, Croix. Now, so we're in Chardonnay country, Burgundy, but southern Burgundy in the Mâconnais, in a little town called Pouilly, which is actually 2 towns, Pouilly and Fuissé. Now, Domaine Robert-Denogent is the premier producer in the village. He's actually one of the disciples of Marcel Lapierre. So if you're a wine enthusiast, a French wine enthusiast or a natural wine enthusiast, you'll know the name Marcel Lapierre because he was the godfather of natural wine. Now, he was based in Beaujolais. He had 5 disciples, 4 of which made red wine in Beaujolais, and 1, Domaine Robert-Denogent, who produced white wine. Now, what does a disciple of Marcel Lapierre mean? It means that they are terroir-driven wines with minimal intervention. Now, while Marcel Lapierre, for a period, didn't use any sulphur, he learnt that he did need to use some. That's not to say that he doesn't have cuvées that don't have any sulphur added. Now, Domaine Robert-Denogent add a little bit at bottling, and most of the disciples do. Now, although there were originally 5 disciples, there's a lot of people that now follow that mindset. Pouilly, like mentioned before, in the Mâconnais, is in a much warmer region of Burgundy. It's about 100 kilometres south of Beaune, and Beaune is the capital of Côte de Beaune, and just south of Côte de Nuits. So Beaune, if you go a little bit further south, you'll hit Puligny-Montrachet, Chassagne-Montrachet, and Meursault. While those wines are steely and fine-boned and delicate and cloud-like, the wines in the Mâconnais are usually much richer. Now, what makes Pouilly so different is there is a genuinely high level of limestone and very old vines with very deep roots. So the wines pick up this incredible minerality. Instead of just being rich wines that are maybe flabby and lack drive, they are incredibly driven. Now, if you have bought one of the 6-packs and you've got a bottle of Croix ready to go, I suggest opening it and decanting it. Now, if you don't have any time, if you intend on having a glass very quickly, get a jug, pour it in the jug, pour it back in the bottle, pour it back in the jug, pour it back in the bottle. That should open up the wine enough so it becomes more defined. Now, the reason being, let's just all have a little smell. When you first open one of Domaine Robert-Denogent's wines, they're wines of relative scale. Now, when you first open them, the most sort of common flavour descriptor you'll say is they're, rich and golden. But as they see air, they start to unravel and become more defined, more interesting and more complex and more layered. They also, funnily enough, become tighter. So a lot of really great Burgundy, white Burgundy, when exposed to oxygen, will become tighter. Now, what's different at Domaine Robert-Denogent is usually when you're producing white wine, let's use Puligny-Montrachet as an example, they will have they will pick the grapes, press the wine, either settle it out overnight in tank or put it straight to barrel. If they settle it out in tank overnight, it then goes to barrel without the gross lees. It goes on fine lees. Now, what they'll do is they will take it out of barrel just before the next harvest in order to be able to fill up those barrels with the next harvest. Now, their argument is it produces very delicate wines and it doesn't take away from the terroir. The Nicolas and Antoine at Domaine Robert-Denogent, the sons, do something completely different, which doesn't necessarily make any sense. And anyone that makes wine will be baffled by this. But in warmer years, they actually leave their Chardonnay in barrels for longer. Now, their argument is after a period of time, it stops getting any bigger and actually becomes tighter. So this particular wine has been in a barrel for 34 months, which is an extreme amount of time. They keep them topped up in their cellar, which is between sort of 8 and 10 degrees. They've got an air conditioner in there as well as being underground. And what that does is it just gives a very, very slow oxidation. So the wines sit on lees. The lees protect the wine from oxygen as well. The temperature protects the wine from oxygen, and they keep it topped. And very, very tight grain barrels. And they also are starting to play around with large concrete vessels as well. Now, let's get to the wine first without the cheese and then with the cheese. On the nose, there is that richness, but because this has been decanting for a bit, it is definitely starting to open up. And you're seeing very defined orchard fruits, both fresh and dried and sort of slightly in between. This beautiful amount of florals. And there's this lovely solids component. Now, when I say solids component, it's almost like lees, but not the hot wheat bix, warm wheat bix, soggy wheat bix character that you see in a lot of Adelaide Hill Chardonnays or Yarra Valley Chardonnays. It's more of a sort of a complex, appealing solids. Now, there's also a lactic component, which will be quite interesting when we try it with the cheese. Now, let's have a little sip. The first thing you notice is its scale. It is a large wine. But the next thing you notice is it finishes very mineral and dry, very long. So it's got volume, and it's obviously grown somewhere a little bit warmer than Pouilly, Montrachet or Meursault. But then you can also taste this exaggerated limestone, chalky minerality character, which just holds it all together beautifully. It's a blockbuster of a Chardonnay. It's definitely a rugby player. It's 14% alcohol, reading on the back. It truly doesn't look it. It's truly just so mineral. And this, even after decanting and sitting down, watching it in the glass unravel as I swirl it, it truly does become more and more mineral. Now, the cheese that Valerie has suggested for this wine today is Comté from the Franche-Comté region, which is just east of Burgundy, or Burgundy itself as well. But as soon as you go on the plains to head towards, say, Jura, which is a couple of hours away, you'll be going through beautiful prime land for Comté, and you'll see all the beautiful cows there. Now, the good thing about aged Comté, say 18 months, is it starts to lose its puppy fat, just like a wine would. Now, this is completely wrong terminology for cheese. I truly have no idea, really, about cheese, only just how it tastes and how it compares to the wine. But it starts to lose a bit of its puppy fat, its primary flavours, and it actually starts to crystallise. It starts to get a lot more defined, a lot more complex, and more layered. Very, very similar to how this wine does. Sorry, just covering the microphone, you don't want to hear that. Straight away, even on the nose, it's funny, the wine actually becomes more savoury, loses more of its primary fruit. And on the palate, it actually brings out more of that lactate, milk character that it had on the palate before. More so than that, it's actually more and more like dried milk. I don't know if anyone knows the smell or the taste of dried milk, but in wine it's actually really quite pleasant. it actually says to me a wine of quality and concentration and a higher level of dry extract. Valerie, very well done on the pairing. That is absolutely delicious. Now, I suggest that everyone opens the bottle. If you can, pop down to Australia Cheese now and grab a bit of 18-month-old Comté, then do so. And please see below for a link to their website and also a list of the cheese, or tonight's cheese, and a list of the next 5 cheeses so you can prepare. Cheers and happy lock-off. Speak soon. Cheers.